It's Andryanna here, and I'm thrilled to share this episode with you because I know that the juggle is real, and I'm often sharing concepts and research and ideas and interviews based on the root of caring for ourselves and based on the importance of how we can prioritize ourselves and our own needs. And that really will help us in everything else in our life. And in today's conversation, we are looking to how we can strengthen our relationships, be it with a spouse, a marital partner, or those who are close to us in our lives, and how we can look at repairing resentment in our relationships. And I'm so grateful to have had the conversation with Dr. Tracy Dalgleish on this because she really is the expert on relationships. Dr. Tracy is a clinical psychologist and relationship expert who is on a mission to help couples break old relationship cycles and find joy in their relationships again. She is the owner of Integrated Wellness, a mental health practice in Ottawa, Ontario, and has been working with individuals and couples for 17 years. Dr. Tracy has extensive training in emotionally focused therapy, EFT, and has been published in books, journals, and online media. Her newly released book, I Didn't Sign Up for This, a couples therapist shares real life stories of breaking patterns and finding joy in relationships, including her own, features case studies from her practice and her own relationship. Now, we're going to be talking about repairing resentment in relationships, but we're going to be going into so much more. So if this sounds good to you, let's get started. Hey, I'm Andryanna and this is the Juggle is Real podcast. As I share my ongoing journey from experiencing burnout to leading a more mindful and intentional life with better balance, I hope you feel seen, that you realize your worth, lighten your load, and prioritize your own needs. As we hear from leading experts and well-known faces in the wellness, entrepreneurship, education, and motherhood space, I hope you gain insights, proven practices, and learn actionable tools to help you enjoy the juggle of work, family, and everything in between with a little less stress and a lot more ease, joy, and fun. Most of all, I hope you find what you need to simplify, streamline, and supercharge your own journey of better balance and self-love. Are you with me? Let's get started. Before we go any further, I have to invite you to my next online workshop. It is called Making the Shift to Better Balance, and it is happening on February 8th and 9th. I want you to join this 2-day free workshop, especially made for busy women, to kickstart your journey to guilt-free, stress-free living. This hands-on transformative experience integrates mindset tools, accountability exercises, and healing practices to foster better balance in every aspect of your life. Now, I've created this workshop over 2 days to really hone in on how you can move forward and take action. In day 1, we are going to release stress, reset our priorities, and embrace self-compassion so that in day 2, you can receive the actionable insights and create a personalized plan for ongoing balance moving forward. After this 2-day workshop, you'll leave feeling motivated and so supported on your path to a more balanced and intentional life. It's kind of like this podcast, but one-on-one with me live on Overdrive. And all registrants will receive a recording. So if you can't make it live, you can watch it whenever it's most convenient to you. For all the details and to reserve your free spot, head to the notes for this podcast episode or visit my website, Andryanna.com. That's ANDRYANNA.com. You deserve to lead a life that feels good. I hope you can join us to do more without doing it all. Now let's get back to the show. Dr. Tracy Dalgleish, welcome to The Juggle is Real. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you, Andryanna. And thank you so much for inviting me into your community here. I know you are just reaching so many and helping so many parents to show up aligned and authentic and to truly juggle this season in life.
We are all master jugglers over here. Thank you so much. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation because I think maybe it's a little selfishly for my own reasons as well. I think this is going to help me, but as well as the listener, really understand how resentment can pop up and rear its head in relationships, specifically as parents, but in all of our relationships. This can happen from time to time. But before we do that, I would just love to know a little bit more about you. We know of all of the incredible things that you are doing to help people, but who's Tracy?
It's a great question. I usually start with my professional identity, but it bleeds into who I am in all parts of my life. And I think one of the most important pieces for me in the story that I tell about who I am is this one Canadian winter being in my basement, watching TV, nursing my second child, and really feeling dissatisfied about the information that was being provided about relationships. And in a parallel around that, as I was on my second maternity leave, as you know, here in Canada, we get the 12 months. As I was on that second leave, I wasn't only dissatisfied with what was being shared around relationships and how we can improve our connection with working on ourselves and the dynamic in our relationship, but also what was parallel to that was my own struggle in my own relationship, which really led to me deep diving into why do I feel so much resentment? Why do I, as a couples therapist, struggle so much when I know all of these tools and interventions and skills when I'm sitting in front of my couples, but then I go home and I am washed away with this really sticky emotion and not knowing how to move through it. And also at the same time, feeling incredibly isolated. None of my friends or other mom friends at the park were talking about this really difficult emotion showing up in their relationship. So on one hand, I wasn't sure if this was something I was supposed to be experiencing, which yes, we are. Resentment is common and it shows up. But then the other part is I felt a lot of shame around it because no one was talking about it.
Oh, isn't that always the case, right? We're always afraid to share or to be vulnerable. And perhaps you are in an interesting position because you know so many things from a conscious perspective, but unconsciously, I guess we're stuck in some old habit patterns, or we're not even aware of the day to day because we're all busy. We have got tons on our plate, and sometimes there's just so much on the go that these things can slip. And so, as a psychologist and a couples therapist, you really have become an expert on relationships, but you're showing women, you're showing couples that it can happen and you can do it, with ease, and it can just flow naturally and become a part of your everyday. It doesn't have to be this big, huge thing that you put up on a pedestal, and it doesn't have to be scary. It can be something that we can talk about, and it can be something that can be incorporated every day. So you mentioned that resentment is common. What are some of the other common reasons why couples might come to you for help? Maybe we can unearth some of these things that maybe someone else is nursing their infant and wondering, why am I the only one who feels this way?
Absolutely. It's such a good question. And to really normalize that you can show up for couples therapy or therapy for yourself at any point in your relationship. And it really is my desire that people would show up earlier in the trajectory of their relationship, meaning that we don't have to wait until we are thinking about divorce or separation. We don't have to wait until we can't get unstuck from these tricky dynamics. So if you're listening today, I want you to know that there is no wrong time to go. And when couples see me earlier on in therapy, or earlier on rather in their process in their relationship, we can make a lot more strides faster, and it's going to help them almost build a more solid foundation in the relationship. So why do people show up? People show up because they're having conflicts around dealing with the mental load, around how to divide tasks in their relationship. This is especially true for many of the parents who show up in my office. Couples come in talking about difficulties managing finances, navigating different desire levels, and challenges around sex. And they also show up around extended family members and how dealing with these issues impacts their couple dynamic. And one of the most common things that people show up with, everybody says this. When I say, what would you like to get out of our work together? They say, we would like to feel more connected and we would like to learn how to communicate better. And at our core, that's what we're looking for, but we don't know how to do this. And so while people come with all kinds of issues, and, I have heard of some of the best fights, meaning We got into this big disagreement over how to chop a vegetable, or a disagreement around where the mug was placed on the counter. But what I see is something much different. And that is these unmet longings and needs, these softer primary emotions like sadness, disconnection, pain. These are what are underneath those common fights that show up in therapy.
Yeah. I mean, I think sometimes it kind of just bubbles to the surface and it shows up in such a small, or maybe what would seem very insignificant, but getting to the root, I think is probably what you help your clients and your audience do. And so when we're talking about resentment, and looking to those goals, because I truly believe that for myself, to deeper my connection with my spouse, to better communicate, this is something that's ongoing. And the more that we can strengthen this, I think the happier we're going to be in our relationship. So I love that that's really a common thread with the people that you're working with. So just to start, as we look to resentment, what do you consider resentment to be? And what are some of those reasons why resentment might show up in our relationships? Maybe it's with a spouse, maybe it's when the children arrive in our households, maybe it's with other relationships otherwise. What is resentment to you, and how does it show up?
I understand resentment as being a set of complex emotions. It's a mix of secondary and primary emotions. Secondary are
Mm-hmm.
often the upstairs, tip of the iceberg type feelings like anger, resentment, frustration. But we know that underneath the waterline is a big mass of other emotions and longings and needs. And so oftentimes underneath resentment, we can find things like envy, we can find jealousy, anxiety, pain, sadness, depression. And so resentment becomes this mix of emotion that if we're not slowing down to identify what's happening for us, it can really start to grate at ourselves and the relationship. And essentially, resentment is the toxic emotion that will break apart a bond if we leave it unaddressed. I want to normalize that resentment isn't a bad emotion, because I think when people feel it and verbalize it for the first time, it sends off these alarm bells for people. Oh no, you resent me. What's going to happen next? This is the end of our relationship. We'll never be able to get back to it. And yet, I think that resentment is incredibly common. What what I often see happening with resentment is one of two things. One, someone is not expressing what they need. They have a whole well of unmet needs and they're not sharing it. Or two, they have shared the need with their partner, but their partner is not meeting that need. Or, and I think this is an important differentiation, is that their partner is not able to meet that need and requires you as an individual to go and get that need met in some way.
Wow, this is amazing. So I'm just going to share, because I have felt resentful in my relationship, in my marriage. And as you were saying that, I specifically remember this one instance where I was very pregnant for our second child, and my husband was leaving for a bachelor party for one of his friends. It was out of town. And so I was pregnant. I had a toddler at the time. He was not yet 2 years old. And I felt that envy. And so it wasn't really until you mentioned it that I can really realize that
Mm-hmm.
that was sort of the root that caused the resentment. And then that caused me to feel closed off, and I guess I was jealous. I wish that I could go off and have a great time with my friends and do this thing, and instead of, feeling very uncomfortable, and I'm sure very hormonal at the time, being, I think I was 8 months pregnant or so. So this has been a common theme that I've personally experienced, and it's created my own resentment. And, I think it stems from many different areas. For me, it's my husband and I approach conflict in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I've felt myself and found myself scorekeeping when it comes to everything I'm doing in the house, everything that I've done for the kids, and what have you done compared to what I've done. the expectations that I have for myself, or the
Mm-hmm.
expectations that I silently have for my husband, and for our children. And then that general lack of communication, beyond what are we having for dinner tonight and who's taking which kid to hockey, and all of that sort of stuff. So I really appreciate how you've mentioned these primary and secondary emotions, be it anger, be it frustration, be it envy, jealousy, etc., because I think that these potential causes can have the effect of resentment. So, can you speak to how we can determine the root of our own resentment in our relationships?
Yes, but before I do that, I want to go back to something that you said. There's so much
Okay.
more in here for us to parcel out. The one thing you said is you identified envy, and then you
Yes.
also had said jealousy. So I want to hang out here for a moment so that listeners can understand that we often have received messages around envy and jealousy as bad emotions. Don't be
Mm,
jealous, don't be envious. And often parents don't even label envy for children. So let's differentiate first. Envy is the experience that someone has something that you want, that you need, and you don't have it. And it can be a really hard emotion because what it then pulls us to do is it pulls us to almost want to tear the other person down, to almost,
mm,
not celebrate their joy and success. It's like, I don't want to do that. Jealousy is a bit different. Jealousy is more about the potential threat of losing something.
okay.
And so that differentiation, I think, can be really important because jealousy then well, I'll back up. Why we want to differentiate those two is because it then leads us to ask, what do we need? What do we
Mm-hmm.
need to do? And Brene Brown really did a great job talking about this. And I think this is an experience that so many of us can relate to. And the experience of resentment for me is that I'm in the kitchen and I'm wiping down the counters and I'm putting away the kids' lunch boxes for the next day and I'm wrapping up whatever leftover food there is. And then I go and see my husband flop on the couch and he gets out his phone and he starts to scroll and his feet are up at the coffee table. And in that moment, that's my resentment. Right there is my resentment. And why is
Mm-hmm.
that? Underneath it is envy. It's the experience where I don't make that choice, but he makes that choice. Not because he's not an equal partner, or I should restate that because our partners will never be equal. It's never 50-50, but not because he's not a fair share partner. He does his fair share around the home, but he easily makes the decision to prioritize rest and pausing, whereas I have been conditioned to prioritize task completion. And so then what we
Right.
tend to do in our relationship that keeps us stuck is we point outward rather than going inward. And what we want to do first there is go inward and say, hang on, what's happening here? What is this about for me? And then how do we do that in our relationship? I had a reel on Instagram that had lots of comments and discussion and conversations around, could you give the task to your partner and let them take it over? And it was around making lunches. And then at the end of the night, when they're supposed to be making lunch, you sit down on the couch. You allow yourself to rest and to sink into whatever it is that you need. Or if you want to go for the walk or see a friend or go to that yoga class or take out the watercolor painting, which has been my thing lately, can you allow yourself to do that? And so many mothers said, what if it doesn't get done? It won't get done. So first we have to back up and say, okay, can we do a task division here? Can we say, hey, love, I've been doing lunches and it's too much for me. I would like us to look at dividing up some of these tasks. And I think that will help us overall in our relationship. Right. And so this is going back to where you had brought in feeling that sense of scorekeeping and also having
Yes.
expectations that are inside of you that are not shared with your partner. So if it's possible, your partner is someone who's at home at night. Okay, this is your task. I'm going to give this to you. And I'm going to completely give this task to you. I'm not going to micromanage it. I'm not going to
Yes.
come over your shoulder and be like, those are too many fish crackers in there. You need to balance it out with more grapes and strawberries. Because that's the
Right.
other thing that backfires for us, right? So I think that is a really important piece then. And the comment, the pushback I get often, and of course this makes sense, right? Is what if he doesn't do it? Yeah. And if he doesn't do it, then in the morning he wakes up late and he's scrambling to make the lunches. You can offer to support, but you don't have to take it over. You don't need to rescue and save your partner every time they don't uphold their commitment to being an adult with you, to being in a partnership with you. So I wanted to highlight the difference there with envy and jealousy, but then also too, I think when you had said, what is at the root of our resentment? You've already labeled some of it, which is our expectations are not discussed. Our
Mhm.
expectations are different from our needs, and we don't share either one of those. And then we try to find ways of getting out of that. And what it comes down to is this discomfort inside of us. And so we get into these patterns of blame and criticisms, and we say things like, if you just helped out, things would be different. This is you. You're not doing anything different, rather than stepping back and saying, hang on, what system are we living here in our relationship? Actually, we've never even sat back and created a system together. When you're running the most important family, or the most important team, rather, that is your family, that's you and your partner sitting together and finding a way to become a more efficient team.
This is so eye-opening. And I love how you kind of took the little story I told you and you're able to break it up into so many little pieces. And really, under all of that, it's taking a closer look at ourselves and understanding what our needs are and how we are communicating that with our partner. And I think that's so special that we can now become aware of it, right? Because the awareness piece is key. Instead of just going about your day and it adding up and piling up and feeling more and more and more resentful, then getting really upset when someone cuts the carrots the wrong way. Now we can kind of look inwards and say, okay, so what is it that I'm actually feeling? Why is this bothering me? And how can I explain this and try to communicate it better? And that's something that I've really been working on. And I really appreciate how you noted even for yourself, when you're making the lunches and your husband is scrolling on his phone with his feet propped up, that's sparking something inside you because it's difficult to give yourself that permission. And here on the Juggle is Real, that's really what my mission is to help women give themselves that permission to understand how worthy they are of seeking out that rest, of caring for themselves in a way so that, sure, maybe you are making the lunches and maybe someone is resting your partner, but it's not bothering you like it may have in the past because you've already done the things that you need to do to feel good about yourself. So that something like, the small item that might have really set you off in the past isn't as bothersome because you're able to care for yourself. But looking to resentment and maybe those fights that seem like they're this big blow up thing over no reason, you often say fighting's normal. And I love that. Fighting is normal in every relationship. I think it's really comforting for us to hear because it's not something, again, that's talked about. So the point of looking more closely at your relationship the goal is not, we never want to fight. And I appreciate that you say that. It's to learn how to repair, to come together, and then to build that closer connection with your partner when those disagreements inevitably occur. So can you speak to this misconception and then how maybe it's going to cause further harm down the road? Why is fighting normal and maybe a good thing?
And even before going into that, let's identify what we don't want to do. We don't want to get stuck in denigrating comments towards another person. We don't want to stonewall and completely shut down and never talk about issues. We need to have a level of respect and trust towards each person. And when I talk about fighting is normal, what I'm coming back to is the concept of interdependence, which is what I talk about in my book. I didn't sign up for this. You've already said the first section of the book, which is aware, because we need to become aware of what's happening inside of us. That's the first piece. But fighting is a way of showing that you are two separate people. So this idea around interdependence is that we are constantly trying to balance the idea or experience of us being an autonomous, independent self. And that is what attracted you to each other at one point, which means you have your own thoughts, feelings, opinions, desires, wishes, and values. You are going to view the world differently. How you experience my mug right here, this blue inside, you see it differently than I do. And there's no right or wrong. But then we need to balance this, which often brings up tension for people, is balancing it with intimacy and connection. And there's this tension to how do I be a separate self while also building connection and intimacy? Both of those pieces are really important. And what happens is we don't know how to do this. And so disagreements and arguing, it's expected in a way, and rather it's how you do it. And we do it in a way where we come back together faster. So we know from the research that master couples, I use that in quotation marks, that's the term by the Gottmans, their research showed that master couples continue to get stuck in their negative cycles of blaming defensiveness, of upping the ante, of maybe even shutting down, but the master couples know how to repair faster, which might even sound like in the moment, noticing when you go to that hot place. I always say it's hot because it feels very hot inside my body. I get a little hot and my jaw clenches. And I say, well, it's not like you're helping out. And I'm like, ooh, that didn't come out how I wanted to say it. Okay, I'm sorry. This is something that I'm feeling a lot of emotion around right now, and I just need to take a step back. That's right there, a way of repairing. Or repairing sounds like after you get washed away in the fight and the thing that happened 3 years ago got brought up again. You have time apart to regulate your nervous systems. The research recommends at least 20 minutes. And it's not 20 minutes of folding laundry thinking, he never helps out. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do here. It's all on me. And we're building the narrative in our mind, right? We're going to feel more distressed. But you go and you do your thing. You come back to a regulated place. And then at some point you come back saying, we really got stuck there. How can we come back together as a team? And the piece here that many people come to me with is they'll say things like, but I don't agree with them. They're not right in this situation. And I remind people that repairing is not about finding who is right or wrong. Repairing is about coming to this place of saying, it's not what we got stuck in, it's how. When we were having that conversation, I know I got critical. And I said things that I imagine didn't feel good for you. And that's not how I want to show up here. And I don't even believe those things, but I know I came from a place of being really angry and triggered and overwhelmed. And I'm sorry that I showed up that way. And part of the repair is then finding a solution together. I love the analogy of a sandbox. And the sandbox is your partner says to you, come to my sandbox. You can only bring your cars. No shovels, no buckets. That's not a relationship. A relationship is a co-creation, which is, oh, you like shovels and buckets. Well, that's cool. What do you like about it? What do you want to build with it? Ooh, okay, you can do that here. And I have my cars here. And then when you build the road, I will bring my cars over. And this is a co-creation, right? This is an interdependence and a connection.
Beautiful. This is beautiful because I think, it can help us in understanding in the moment, right? And I think sometimes, to be able to master the repair part, it really is understanding what's going on with yourself first. This is so great because oftentimes we are, like you said, we're made up of two people in the relationship. So what can we do maybe when we're in that disagreement so that we're not left lingering to fester and have that turn into resentment? We're not letting it snowball into bigger issues, or we're not constantly, revisiting the same argument over and over without it actually being addressed. And I'm going to speak for myself here, but I know a lot of the listeners will resonate with this because we're in this season of life where things are very busy, and it often feels like Ryan and I were like two ships passing in the night, right? You're going here, I'm going there. You're on bedtime, I'm on bath time. And so with all the commitments you have, how can we as couples in this busy season work together to strengthen our relationship when it really, like, we don't have a lot of extra time? We don't necessarily have the luxury of really, going to our places for 20 minutes and thinking about it and regulating our nervous system in every situation, right? So how can we maybe understand some tools that might help us in the moment, or that we can work on and come back with?
I love that you just said that we are in a busy season and we don't have time. So I'm going to challenge that thought loop that we like to get stuck in, because we do have time. We scroll on social media. We stay a little bit longer in the bathroom. We get distracted by thinking we're going to make the list, and then we're scrolling something else on our phone. There's time in there, but it's more about our intentionality and where we're choosing to make those conscious choices. And it can be really difficult. And I think we need to even call out that our phones are addictive and pull us away from being in the moment with the person that we're choosing. And to remember that when I'm choosing to connect with the person beside me, I am experiencing a deeper sense of connection in my body than what my phone will ever give me. It lasts longer. And it was so neat. I ran my roommate challenge. It'll run again soon. We're starting February 1st for the next roommate challenge, but it was incredible to see so many people first show up saying, we feel like roommates, we want something to be different. And then to say, wow, these small things that we are doing each day is making a real and meaningful change. And I think we need to acknowledge that if you put your relationship on the back burner, it doesn't continue to simmer and be excited and be fulfilling. So those small things are things like choosing to put your phones away when you first wake up and spend 10 to 15 minutes not looking at your screens, but connecting together. Finding physical touch that feels good for both of you. And I know this is hard when parents are overwhelmed and touched out, which, if that's where somebody is, then that speaks to the need to look after yourself. And part of even intimacy with our partners is about finding the self again, having intimacy with ourselves. And then, of course, too, let's go back to some of those daily rituals. What did you do back when you first started dating? We're never going to go back to the limerence stage, the honeymoon stage in our relationship, but there were things that all of us did that brought butterflies into our stomach, that maybe even got us excited, that the sense of anticipation that we need in a relationship. What are those things that you did? Was it pouring your partner's cup of coffee? Was it sending them that text message? And actually, I encourage anyone who is listening today, go do the thing, do that one thing. And maybe it's even going in for a longer hug. Remembering that if you are a parent who is touched out and overstimulated by the end of the day, a deep pressure hug can feel really good and soothing, not the gentle light taps touch that doesn't feel so good. It feels more threatening to our nervous system. Or going in for a 6-second kiss. 6 seconds for kissing. A 30-second hug is enough to release oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone. And it also is released between partners, not just when you're feeding baby.
So many amazing, amazing actionable advice here. Thank you so much, Dr. Tracy. Choosing to make conscious choices and be really intentional about your relationship. That really stuck out for me. And I love how you're saying that it really can happen in small pockets of time. And that's really what I reiterate when it comes to caring for yourself.
Mm.
And I guess applying that to your relationship, because yeah, when it is on the back burner, which sometimes it can get stuck there, but it's not going to fix itself if it remains up on the back burner, right? It has to be taken down and it has to be nurtured. So February 1st is your next roommate challenge. And I'll put a link in the notes for this podcast episode so that the listener can be sure to sign up whenever it's available. I want to talk about this new book that you've recently released. It's called I Didn't Sign Up for This. A couples therapist shares real life stories of breaking patterns and finding joy in relationships, including her own. I love the ideas, the concept, and everything that you've poured into this book. And I would love for you to share how this idea came to be, why you decided to write this self help and sort of memoir style book, and how did you decide to put your own experiences in there? What was that situation like? And your husband, Greg, how did he feel about it? I would love to know all about how this book came to be.
The book came to be part self-help and part memoir. So it brings in stories. And one of the things I know about how we learn and grow and change is through hearing stories of other people. And I wanted a self-help book where people felt seen through stories, where they could relate to other people and their everyday struggles in their relationship. And I wanted people to get to the end. I don't know about you, but admittedly, I have some self-help books that sit and collect dust and I have not finished them. I wanted people to go through the stories of real people who have shown up into my office and taken risks and gotten stuck and had detours and struggled, so that other people can say, oh, that couple, Emily and Matt, yeah, I think I identify with her and the challenges that she experiences in her family and how that impacts her relationship. And I really wanted people to be seen and to not feel so alone in the struggles in their relationship. And as I was writing the book, what became really apparent was just the humanness that we all experience in our relationship struggles. We don't get to be in a relationship without experiencing some kind of pain and struggle. And by keeping my story out, it was almost like creating this wall, a wall of saying, I'm not like you. I don't struggle with these things. When in actuality, I was going home struggling and saying the very things my clients were saying. I found myself sitting in front of mothers, couples, parents, all saying the same thing. I didn't sign up for this. And after having my second child, with the weight of the mental load, with resentment just seething through me at times, I found myself crying in the shower saying those very words and really struggling in our connection. So I really wanted to humanize first the experience of relationship distress, the everyday struggles that we have, but then I also wanted to humanize the therapist, someone who knows all of the skills and strategies. And I can sit in front of a client and my stuff is not in the room. I'm trained to be working objectively with them and using the interventions that I'm trained to use. And then when I go home, the reality is I have been a human a lot longer than I have been a therapist. My nervous system is the same as yours. I react at times in ways that I wish I didn't. I experience shame and self-criticism, and I really want to peel back the curtain on that. So Greg's support throughout this process was surreal. And actually something that was really important in our own journey is once the book was done, he came to me and said, gosh, I'm really sorry. I see how my own struggles at that time really came and impacted us in our dynamic. And that was a side effect of healing that came through the book that I wasn't expecting. So he's been incredibly supportive throughout the process.
So great to hear. And what would you hope the reader takes away after making it to the end of I didn't sign up for this?
That's a good question. I hope they feel empowered that they could do something different. We don't get to control other people, but we get to be curious and be open to ourselves and our own experiences. And then we get to make choices every single day. Actually, I received a DM from someone who actually had the same name as one of the couples in the book, and she had said, "I I believed I had a good childhood, and I did. And I kept kind of fluffing away the idea that our childhood impacts our relationships today. And after reading the book, I've had some major aha moments around what happened in my earlier experiences and how they impact me today. So that would be my hope for people, is that they could see just the earlier patterns that we unconsciously repeat because they are familiar, and that we can start making those changes to build meaningful relationships.
I didn't sign up for this. You can get it wherever books are sold. I will also
Mm-hmm.
share a link for that in the notes for this episode as well.
Thank you.
Dr. Tracy, a final question as we close out and as we wrap up. I love that there's been so many similar themes of both caring for yourself as well as being part of, that interdependent relationship. So I would love to ask you about your ongoing journey with your own self-care as a woman who wears many hats, as a clinical psychologist, a speaker, an author, mom of two beautiful children, spouse, so much more. The
Mm-hmm.
juggle, of course, is going to be real in your life. So, how do you consciously choose authentic self care practices for yourself to help you manage everything that's on your plate? And I would just love to hear about maybe one thing that you're doing and one thing that you're not doing that help you feel that better balance in your life.
Something I go back to, and this comes from my one as an Enneagram and my inner perfectionism and striver and high achiever, is that, well, first, I've stopped trying to get rid of my perfectionism because I see it as a tool and something that I can use, and it's a gift. One I need to choose wisely to tap into, but something I really come back to is I do enough and I am enough. And so in moments of struggle, I really repeat that to myself. And I hooked on to earlier when you had said, that this community is about permission. And what started all of my online space and my own healing as a mom of two was the word that kept repeating in my mind, which was permission. And my newsletter initially was called the permission list. It's transformed now, but it really is this sense of giving ourselves permission to change, permission to look after ourselves, permission to do something different. The part that I struggle with the most is the mandate that my husband and I have made for each other. And that is one night a week. And our kids are now 8 and 6. One night a week, we go and do our thing for ourselves. And sometimes life just gets in the way. It's been a busy clinical day. The kids are having a tough night. And it can be hard for us sometimes to really keep that commitment, the commitment to ourselves. So I find that piece a bit challenging right now. So it's something that I need to continue to work on. And I try not to do the revisionist history. I wish I had done it earlier. And it was hard as a new mom, as us trying to find our world, living here in Ottawa with no parental village, like with our own parents. It was hard to carve out time for ourselves, but it's something that I wish that I did more of before. And it's something that I need to keep working on moving forward.
And it's an ongoing journey, right? Like everything. Tracy, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you today. I'm so grateful to have had this conversation. I certainly feel so much better, and I have some ideas for how I can perhaps have that better deepened communication with my own husband. So thank you so much for being here. I look forward to keeping in touch and chatting some more.
Thank you so much for inviting me here. And thank you to everyone who listened and joined us.
Such an honor to have this conversation with Dr. Tracy Dalgleish. And it has helped me so much. I'm not lying. I mean, I'm writing down notes myself, and I'm thinking of things and looking at ways that I can strengthen my own relationship with Ryan, how I can look at relationships in my family and my life, and really choosing to make conscious choices when it comes to that interdependency that Dr. Tracy was talking about. I know you have someone that you can share this episode with, someone who might be struggling in their relationships, maybe in their marriage. So please share this with that person. And definitely, if you found value in this, it would mean so much to me to rate this episode in Apple Podcasts, share a short and sweet review, maybe how you're going to implement this in your own life. And if you feel the calling, share it to your social media. I'm so grateful that you spent the time to get to the end of this episode. All sorts of links are available for you in how you can connect with Dr. Tracy, how you can pick up her new book, I Didn't Sign Up for This, sign up for the February 1st Roommate Challenge, and so much more. I hope that you're back here soon for another episode of the Juggle is Real podcast. Until then, take good care.